Is Snert invading your shop? We see that a lot with these big bifold doors. Those shops are heated, so that means cold's getting in, heat's getting out. So what we're going to do today is we're going to seal up the bottom, we're going to seal up the sides and the top with SnirtStopper. We're going to seal it up tightly to keep snow, dirt, rain, critters outside where they belong. So we're going to be sealing this 40 by 20 bifold doors. As we take a look down here, if you look, you got some cobwebs, wind is coming through it. That's not 20 degrees or lower. That stuff gets hard when it gets cold. So he is having a lot of heating problems. This is a south-facing door. Also, if we look at these crappy strips, look at what has happened. Our stuff will last for 25 years. We're going to put on the sides, we're going to use the original bottom sealer to seal that up. Okay, let's take a close look on this right side of the door. As you can see, we know the customer has been having problems. He tried to seal up the corner with a smaller piece. We have bugs. Look at the bugs are coming through. My hand's down here. You can feel wind coming this way. Imagine how much heat he's losing in the wintertime with this south-facing door. But we come up here, look what has happened here. That is not sealing. When we get done, we'll have this nicely sealed, tight, to keep snow, dirt, rain, critters out and cold where they belong. So when we installed the original bottom sealer on the side, what we did is we screwed through the flap without the loop, so the loop is sticking out. We want that so when the door presses in, it pushes against it. And how I lined this up is we closed the door and we looked at how to line that up. We wanted the thermal tube sticking out a little bit, because that way when the door comes in, it will push back and have a nice seal. You can install your screws every 6 or 9 inches. On this door, because this is a wood frame, we did every 6 inches. Last week, we did a steel frame building. We did that every 9 inches. As we can see, we're working with a surface that's not straight. That's one of the great things about our product. It's versatile. So as you can see here, we're nice and tight. We come down about right here. We have a concave, and you can see the daylight here. So what we're going to do is we'll remove those screws, and we'll move this out further. We have plenty of that flap to be able to do that. We got easily 1 inch to play with. So what I did was, before I took all the screws out, I took a pencil. I marked a mark up here because that's where we were tight, and down here we weren't as tight. And then what I did, I went above the line, and so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go out. It looked like about 1/4 of an inch. So we're just going to move this out, and then we're going to close the door again to make sure we're nice and tight. And the reason we have to do it on this door is just because we have that spray foam instead of a straight metal, so we have to work with the concaves. So what I did on this side here was where we had the gaps, I took a screw, actually a longer screw. We have them at 3/4 and 1/2 inch, 3/4, and I ran it right on the bottom side of the foam, and that sucked it out. I did that again down here because we had the same problem down here, and then we had another one down there. So it is a trick of the trade if you're working with a door that is uneven as bad as this one. We finished up the right side. As you can see, we have a very nice tight gap for years and years and years, all the way down to the bottom. If we go down to the bottom, to the top, we are keeping those Snert monsters outside where they belong. We're going to be sealing the top of this 40 by 20 bifold door. On most bifold doors, most of them are metal beams, and we're doing the bottom header. But on this door, we're going to be doing it up by the hinge. If we were going to be installing on the bottom header to do it, we would be installing the XL or double XL on the outside part of the header, because then when the door comes down, if this is the header, this would help squeeze it in. On this bifold door, we're going to the top header where the hinge is. And what we're going to be using is we're going to be using large, because this client has about a 3/4 inch. And we're going to be putting the screws through the flap literally like this here, so when it closes, it seals it. So what we're using large. We're taking the flat piece and screwing it right into the front stud, and that's how we're sealing that up. So when the door closes, it's going to be nice and tight. Another reason we have to do it this way is because we're working with spray foam. We still would do it if it was flat sheet metal on the outside, but this way it will concave just like it concaves to an even floor. We're concaving to an even wall because of the spray foam. Our next step is to seal the bottom up, and we're using XXL to do that, the 3-inch stuff. What we're going to now do is draw a line every 6 inches, and then we're going to install the first go around every 12 inches, close the door, see where our gaps are. And if your door has that sheet over it because you finished it off, you will want to remove those bottom screws so you can tuck the SnirtStopper in there. This door, we don't have that problem. This is what we took off on that corner. I really think this is what is a factory piece, but just look at the difference. We're going to install this. This is what we took off. I think this will do a heck of a lot better to keep Snirt out, obviously, with that thermal tube. So this is generally how you get the XX from us. We put it in Saran wrap. So what we're going to want to do is get this out, and we make the XXL custom to your size. So this is for 40 feet. This is actually how we make it is 40 feet, about 5 to 6 inches. We always give you a minimum 5 extra inches. We always try to give you at least 6. That way you have a little room to play with. So we're just going to lay that out. And now we're going to start to install that. The corners are going to be some of your most important place to seal up. So what I like to do is make sure this foam is sticking out. Your thermal cylinder tube is sticking out. It doesn't matter how much, if it's a 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch, but make sure it is, because this will slide, and that's fine. But you don't want it slide so it's all the way in. You want this slide so you have about a 1/4 out. I closed the door first of all to see where's the best way to line it up. So I drew a line with a marker down there to see where how far I have to move the material over. So what we're going to do is so roughly it would be about here. Now, you're going to have to cut this material. What I have found best that will cut this Kevlar belting type of material is just one of these tin snips. A scissors will do it, but this will do it much quicker and much more precise. So I'm going to cut this here. I use a Milwaukee scissors, and that does good, but on fine pieces like that, a tin snips just goes much quicker. I closed the door to see how much I have to seal. With this bifold door, I am going to run this thread basically on the bottom of the door all the way going across. You will want a second person to help you. To keep the bottom tight, do not be grabbing on that thermal tube because that will slide and then will mess up on this other side here. You're going to be grabbing on the top and the bottom flap. The bottom flap is the loop. The top flap is the bigger flap that does not have a loop. People ask, well, why do you do so much? Because then it allows you to adjust accordingly and so forth so you can follow your concrete. When we install this on the back of the door like this, we're able to follow and adjust to the floor instead of the door. You do want them tight. Doesn't matter if you're using the Phillips or the hex head that you can get from us. But don't go too tight. If you go too tight, you want to back off a little bit. You don't want the material to pucker. So right now, what I'm doing is I'm going all the way across. What I did do first is I went in at about 3 feet. I'm going to do a couple of these. Then I'm going to come back and do the end because I want such a tight seal on the end here. So, okay, now again, we're coming up to this part here. We're going to trim this out. And if you had metal on your door here, I would have you loosen those bottom screws and then tuck this flap right underneath it. Now we're coming down to the end and we want to have a nice tight seal. So what I have found on the XX and single X is, I'm going to measure, because it's easier to cut twice and cut long first of all and cut a little shorter. So up to that, we're roughly 8.5 inches. So if we're right here, I'm going to cut probably about 9 inches and have it really tight. The foam is very difficult to cut even with the Milwaukee scissors. That's why we have this. That will cut the foam very well. The scissors to do the trimming of the material. Okay, we're going to settle on that, see how that does. It's okay that we bulge a little bit up and down. We rather have it tight. Okay, so what we're going to do now, folks, is we're going to close this door and just see where we're at, see if we have to make any adjustments. So as you can see, this is bounding up way too much. It's too tight. So we're going to have to do some trimming here. This side, we did trim a couple of times, but look at how nice and tight. We used to have that gap down in that corner. This is the difference. This is not bulging. Okay, we just finished up the double XL on the bottom. If we look at the two corners, before we saw daylight and we were inviting critters in, and a lot of cold would come in, a lot of heat. So we have that sealed completely going left to right, both corners. In the center, we had a problem here in the center. So we have this completely sealed up. So what we're going to do here is we're going to use the side seals, because you can see a very 1/4 inch gap. You can see the daylight. And as the client said, he gets a lot of frost here. So we're literally going to take white side seals, and we're going to run that all the way across like that there. When the door opens, closes, this will pinch inside, which will do a nice seal. But one of the things that we've noticed when we're installing it, we have a south wind today, and you're feeling that wind coming through. That's one of the reasons why the client also wants to seal this center seam. In the wintertime, you'll get a lot of cold. In the summertime, a lot of heat inside. So we're keeping Snert out, but just notice you're really feeling a lot of wind that's coming through here. We get this question on what should we use on the top, which size? It depends on your gap. For example, last week we took the XXL and we made it specially for that door with just one flap. This is a sample of the piece. And we installed it like this on that door. Now this would not work on this door, and I'll show you why. This does not have that gap. The other door had a 3-inch gap. This door, what we're going to do on this door is we're going to use large. And what we're going to do is we're going to install this just like we did on the sides. We're going to take the flap without the loop. We'll do it with the door open so it's easier. And we're going to run that so when this closes, this will be a nice tight seal. If you have a 2-inch gap, you're going to use the single XL. If you're really tight, you use the bottom original sealer. So depending on your gap determines which of the bottom sealer, I know that's for the bottom, but that's for an overhead door. We use the bottom sealers to seal on the top of the bifold door, because when the door closes, it will swing in just like we saw on the sides. That way we have a nice tight seal, because it's extremely important in a heated shop or a heated warehouse or a heated area that we get a tight seal on the top with what we're seeing with our energy costs increasing. Well, folks, we did it again. We stopped Snert from happening on this big 40 by 20 bifold door. I mean, when we were working on it, we have a south wind today. We could feel wind coming in. We saw bugs coming in before we installed SnirtStopper. We have stopped Snert again, sealed the bottom up with double X, large on the top, original on the bottom, and then we also sealed the center up there with the side seals. Because you know what? Snert happened and we stopped it again.